Has anyone here been on vacation outside of the United States? Raise your hand. Wow. Wow, that is so impressive. Very surprising. Okay, so how about if you turn to a neighbor, since it's well over half the class? I'd love for you to just share with your neighbor the furthest place from home that you have traveled for vacation. Ready, set, go. Very nice. Okay, so I'm sure you could probably talk about your vacations for the next hour or so. Okay, so I'm glad we got to take you there for just a moment to remember the wonderful experience you had. But today we will actually, we're going to have half of my talk is going to be a little bit more traditional in nature. We're going to learn a little bit about ecotourism and the impetus for ecotourism. And then I would like to take you on a virtual field trip to teach you the rest of the story, okay? So I'm going to actually take you along with some of my work, which leads me into who am I anyway? Okay, so obviously my name is Susie Ross. I teach in hospitality, recreation, and tourism. That means that I've worked in various different aspects of recreation industry. Most recently, I was a recreation therapist, which most people say, what is that? And now I am the coordinator of the recreation therapy component of our department. In short, that means recreation therapists work with people in hospitals and in the community to help them to learn about themselves and to stabilize on the inside and to find joy in their lives. And so recreation therapists work on ski hills, they go fishing, we go to movies, we're inside where we play checkers and chess. We work with people with depression, to people with schizophrenia, to working with people who have spinal cord injury or brain injury. So we work with all sorts of different people, so that's an important thing for you to know in case you have a friend who doesn't know what to do with themselves and they need a major. Okay. So that's a little bit about, and I say that because recreation therapy, no one ever hears of it. So I always have to tell everyone what it is. Except for you, you know what it is.
It's the best major on the
Yeah, there we go. So, but then why am I talking to you about ecotourism then? Why am I talking to you about ecotourism? Well, I happen to teach a class about ecotourism and sustainability in the tourism industry because tourism is part of recreation industry, of course. And so that is also part of my background. I have a varied background. And one of the things that this university asked me to do about maybe 6 years ago is they funded me to go down and do some research in Mexico looking at ecotourism, and especially in the Cancun, Yucatan Peninsula, Cancun area. Well, you probably all have heard of Cancun, yeah? So Cancun is what's called a cluster site. It is a place where, of course, it has been a purposely created tourism site. It used to be a little tiny fishing village. So my task was to research and find and go to and analyze, does ecotourism exist in the Cancun area? And if so, what does it look like? How are they doing? Is there actually ecotourism in probably the place that is the opposite of ecotourism? So that's where I'm going to take you on our virtual field trip with some of the Cancun areas. Okay, so that leads me to a little bit of an introduction here to what are we talking about here. So ecotourism is really the confluence of four major ideas. Everyone's going to get this PowerPoint presentation, by the way. So it's all going to be posted, available to you. So please take ancillary notes, how you might already do for class. So we're really talking about several different ideas. We're talking about cultural sustainability, ecological sustainability, of course, economic sustainability. But an important part of ecotourism is learning. The people who embark on ecotourism are there because they're interested in learning and expanding themselves. Today we're going to talk about mass tourism, which is the tourism that you're probably most identified with, the destruction that has resulted from mass tourism, and then what are the solutions? And of course today, one of the solutions that's being posited internationally is the idea of ecotourism. And it really is a question still, is ecotourism a viable solution? I want to talk to you about what is ecotourism, and then also we're going to talk about the example of the virtual field trip thing. Okay, so here we go. So mass tourism size, I just want to very briefly introduce you to the idea of just how big tourism is. Tourism is the largest industry in the world. It is the largest industry in the world. 230 million jobs. So if tourism were a country, it would have the second largest economy. Second only to the United States. In over 150 countries, which is 4 out of 5 about, tourism is one of the 5 top export earners. In 60 of those 150, tourism is number 1. Tourism is simply the central earner for so many countries. It is, so much money is moving around the planet because of tourism. So many products are being created and sold because of tourism. So many people are being employed as we speak because of tourism. And so we must look at tourism when we look at environmental studies. It's so smart that this is happening because tourism is so huge. So we have to look at something that's so large because, of course, the impact that it has. Not only on the environment, but the culture as well. If we look at the future, it's only just, the growth of mass tourism is exponential at this point. And we're really looking at 1.6 billion travelers in 2020. So it's just been rising at a rapid rate, and there really doesn't appear to be any slowing at all. Even after 9/11, there was a dip in travel, but the impact of that horrible tragedy didn't really last that long. So now that you get an idea of some of the size of mass tourism, I want you to have a very basic idea of what are we talking about here when I use the language mass tourism. Mass tourism can be equated, and it sounds kind of funny, but in all the literature, this is the language that's used, is that it's affiliated with the 4 S's. Mass tourism has an affiliation with sand, the beautiful sandy beaches, the sun is out, the umbrellas are up, the sea is there before you, and of course, there's a sexual appeal to it. There's also affiliated with mass tourism is this idea of captive tourism, that there's this growing occurrence where the people are captive in different isolated environments, such as all-inclusive resorts. The other important piece to know about mass tourism is that it can tend to be extractive, meaning that there's taking from the environment, whether it's fishing or hunting. There can be an extractive nature to mass tourism. So now I want to go through some of the major areas of destruction. Since this is environmental studies, I want to touch through those. Have you touched on those as a class?
Yeah.
The destruction of tourism?
Oh, no.
The destruction along with tourism? So you have heard about airplane travel then, right? The destruction involved with airplane travel. So this is not a big surprise. So you guys know about that. But of course, when you're, it's a lot of this travel, looked like 75% of the class had gone internationally, gone outside the United States. So that means you were in an airplane. So everyone here knows and is well aware of the impact of flights to our environment and to the ozone. Okay. This figure is hard to really nail down, but this particular source, the United Nations, says 5% of global warming is due to tourism. Okay, so is that really accurate? It's hard to say. That's a pretty hard stat to really be confident about. But one thing that several case studies and analysis of case studies showed is that public awareness of the impact of use of airplanes is low. Okay. So you already know about the airplanes. Well, let's talk about golf courses. Have you guys talked about golf courses? No. Oh, okay. Well, then hopefully we're going to get into some new material then. Because of course, once you take the plane and you get there, a lot of times a very common thing you might do as a tourist is to golf. Or if you don't golf, there are a lot of people there are golf courses at these fancy hotels a lot of people go to, okay? And it's advantageous for fancy hotels, five-star hotels, to have golf courses, okay? So then what? Then we're talking about a whole host of problems with the golf courses. The biggest thing, of course, is toxicity and water. You know, you have all the water to keep them green, but then you have the toxicity as well to keep them green. We're not even bringing into the fact the toxicity right now, all the toxins that you're using to keep it green, but just how much water it's literally taking. It can be very much of a draw for a hotel in a smaller city who really wants to play upon the tourism dollar, where there are real needs at stake. Young children who want to be educated, families who want to have a better life than the ones that they had growing up. These are very real needs, of course, and they're looking at the tourist dollar as a way to make life better. And they look at the beautiful, fancy hotels that can be seen and the golf courses, and it is very understandable to want to bring that into one's country. But then, what happens? You put a gorgeous hotel somewhere, and then from all the neighboring areas, you're drawing upon the resources to then maintain what you've created. Cruise ships. Okay, I'm not going to ask who has been on a cruise ship, but I have to say I myself have even felt every now and then like, oh, wouldn't it be great to go on a cruise ship? But you know, then I gather myself and no, I don't want to do that. Because cruise ships are a powerfully destructive force still. It's gotten enormously better in the last 3 to 4 years due to regulation and enormous hundreds and millions of dollars worth of fines to all the major cruise industries. Millions of dollars of fines. But this is a really booming business, and we still have a long, long way to go to help the cruise industry to become sustainable. For instance, in a 7-day cruise, this is what is created. Gallons of photochemicals, dry cleaning waste, used paints, batteries, fluorescent light bulbs, medical waste, expired chemicals. It is so much longer than that. And this is actually a smaller ship. They are making the ships so much bigger now. They're getting to be mega ships. Yes, the one that recently wanted to stop by in Monterey. Okay, this is a very big problem because the International Maritime Law says, oh, you know, once you get a certain distance off the shores, the laws of the land don't exist, and we're the dumping, and even in the middle of the night, and there were flyovers taking infrared pictures to see the miles and miles and miles of dumping that would go off at sea. It's just been a really horrendous experience. Where the destruction is all the way from dumping to destroying the coral reefs to the sociocultural pieces that we're going to come up to and talk about. The Caribbean is one of the largest meccas of cruise ships. So the other thing that we haven't yet talked about is who owns these ships? Who owns these businesses? Okay, and what happens when, with all the millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that are being made, what happens to all that money when it's foreign owned outside the United States or outside of the Caribbean? So they're going all the way through all these beautiful islands and these pristine marine environments, and traipsing through and causing a lot of real damage, and they're enjoying they're getting to enjoy the Caribbean, and then where does the massive amount of money go? Well, if it's not owned by people in that area, the massive amounts of money are going out. Okay, so in this particular case, European countries, that's where the money is going to go right to. It's not going to be in the Caribbean. That's not where it's going to be spent. The other thing that happens in cruise ships is that the domestic people working on the ships, because there's just, as these ships get larger and larger, what they don't tell you is how many people are working behind the scenes that are just getting paid very marginal, substandard wages, because the laws don't apply. And so and even to this day, the most recent statistics, $50 a month from the Transport Workers Federation, this was 2009. So, there are different solutions that are happening. One thing is that Alaska has a $50 visitor fee that they charge for, on top of the docking fees for the cruise for environmental infrastructure services. But this type of thing is just the beginning of how can we start rectifying the situation with cruise ships. What about the garbage? So the amount that's produced is per passenger is really high compared to, someone on shore who's just living their regular, ordinary life. Why is that so high? Well, you just think about any time that you go to a traditional hotel, the volume of water that you might use yourself, then on top of that your towels, and then you go down to the pool and you use more towels, and then you might, all the different services that you engage in that are extra that you wouldn't normally do in a traditional day in your life. But on a cruise ship, it's a very indulgent sort of experience. So you're indulging in so many more resources than you would in a typical day of your life. Okay? Okay, then there's the illusion of making money. I mentioned on this earlier. The average stayover expenditure for a person who comes to a village or a place, a city, and stays overnight in a hotel or a lodge, okay, their average stayover expenditure is $994 in the Caribbean. The average cruise ship expenditure, $77 in that same period of time. Okay, and then the amount of taxes paid by this stayover person is $133, so that taxes is being given then to the people, that trickles down hopefully to the children and the schools and the infrastructure and all that. This person who is staying overnight in the lodge pays $133 to the country. The average cruise ship expenditure is $17. So you can see here this idea, this illusion that happens when large mega transnational companies come in and say, oh, Monterey, you want to improve your economy. We're going to have this big ship come and be in your harbor, and all those thousands of people are come out into the streets, and they're going to spend money in Monterey. Wouldn't it be great? And all the industry people will be like, yay, woohoo, this is so cool. People are going to come into my shop. But what isn't explained is that this drastic change, is that really the money we want to go after? Okay? So then there's the idea of creating the marina. In order to receive the little boats that come from the big ship to the shore, there has to be a marina in order to do that and receive that. And in order to create a marina that's big enough that can hold all the infrastructure, it really does mean a massive reorganization of a whole village. If not, the decimation of the village. The other thing that happens that wouldn't be apparent when you first start thinking about a catastrophe of cruise ships is that other boats must maintain a fixed distance from the ships. Okay, so then all of a sudden, as the ships move closer to the land, all of a sudden, what happens if you want to go fishing? Because half the places where all these cruise ships are going are fishing villages. So what happens to all the fishermen? Because it's mostly men. Then all of a sudden there's a privatization of the water area where they're like, that used to be my spot where I used to go. There was good fish there. So there's a lot of complicating factors. There's so many slides we have to talk about cruise ships because it's so important. Also, when the marina is created, the bay needs to be dredged, which you guys know what dredging is, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone knows what dredging is, yeah? It's literally where there's a big metal scraper, and it goes down under the water, down to the bottom, and you scrape the bottom of the ocean, and you literally make it deeper, make the water deeper. You scrape away earth. You scrape away all the ecosystem, the marine ecosystem. All that just gets wiped out, okay, in order to make it deep enough to receive the boats and whatnot. Local water supplies are tapped, and of course there needs to be garbage unloaded, so like, oh, here's all this. Now, of course, the ships have to pay lots of money to dock there, and that helps pay for the infrastructure. The other thing that happens, this is getting into a little bit of the sociocultural impacts, is that walkways are fenced off. So all of a sudden, we need to have where the tourists going to get funneled when they arrive off the boats. And different walkways that might have already been there need to be fenced off, access roads expanded for day tours. Local businesses sometimes told to relocate or pay a fee. A lot of times the businesses will have to have a relationship with the cruise industry, and that's the places that everyone goes. Okay? So it starts to get really squirrely when you start to have a ship come in. So we'll get off the cruise ship thing, and we'll go into a different distraction, and that is all-inclusive hotels. There are different contrived environments that happens when we have mass tourism. When we have contrived environments, and everyone here has probably seen one and have probably experienced it before, is that we displace the natural habitat and the species, the native species that are there. If you've ever been to Hawaii, for instance, or the Caribbean, you'll see, in the Big Island in particular, is really amazing. All this white sand was shipped into the Kona area, normally it's just this barren landscape of lava, and all of a sudden it's not that anymore. And these contrived environments are very appealing for some people. The other issue with all-inclusive resorts is this idea of fences. They're not necessarily literal fences, but what happens is this. You think about the all-inclusive resort, and you've purchased this piece of land, basically, with all these services, and it's really appealing for parents because the kids are safe. But whose beach was that 50 years ago or 25 years ago when Grandma and Auntie used to take the picnic basket down on Sunday afternoons down to this one beach, and this was my favorite beach, and this is where we used to go. And now there's a hotel there, an all-inclusive resort. You can't go there anymore. Like the years and years and years, you and your family used to go there and picnic, and now you can't go there. You just can't go there. It's been taken away. And so what we fence out, there's two sides to that fence. In Australia, one of the demands that's happening is for hunting wolves, and the wolf population is dwindling there. I mentioned this earlier, but the idea of leakage. Have you guys heard of the term leakage? Okay, so we're talking about economic leakage when we say leakage. And leakage pertains to when the money is going out of the community or out of the country. What does that mean? Exactly what I was talking about earlier. Who owns the company? Because whoever owns the company, that's where the majority of the money goes. The majority of the money are not with the little people like you and me. Okay? So if, rarely do people use tour agents these days, travel agents, but those people that still use travel agents, 8 to 12% goes to them. Well, most of the travel agents, at least that we would use, live in the United States. So there you go, 12% off the top stay in the United States. And that money is not going to wherever you're going to help those people. 80% of all-inclusive packages go to the airlines, hotels, and other international companies. So that's a really large percentage. So if you use all-inclusive packages as tours, like where you link everything together, especially if you use one of those online things, like you make a flight through Orbitz or something, and then they say, oh, do you want a package? Or do you want a hotel? Do you want a car? And all of a sudden, what happens is that if you start to create your own packages that way, or you buy a package, it's very convenient. Very convenient. That's why it's so nice and works. The problem is that it does a lot of harm to the local people because the massive 80% of your money goes right back into the United States, which is really nice for our economy because we're in this situation we're in. But if we're thinking about long term, if we're thinking about the equity of, if we're thinking about the equity of how we spend our money and where we're spending our money, we're going to this other land, this other place. The people that live there, do they deserve more of our money? Where do you want your money to go? If you want it 80% to go back to the United States, then just know you're doing that. But when you travel, especially outside the United States, and you meet people and get to know them, as many of you have, your heart maybe wants to start to be able to give to them. So for instance, eco-lodges hire and purchase locally and sometimes put as much as 95% of the money into the local economy. So the thing is that when you start moving into an ecotourism type of paradigm, you're aiming for the largest majority of the money to stay right where you're visiting. Destruction number 5 is culture. So one of the things that happens in mass tourism is what we've seen before is stage authenticity, where like such as the Hawaiian luau, but this sort of thing happens all over the place. Co-opted festivals, for instance, just discovered that in Thailand they're celebrating Mardi Gras for the tourists. Go figure. I mean, Mardi Gras, I'm all for it, but in New Orleans, you know, why is that happening? I'm not, and this isn't a blow to people in Thailand. It's part of the sociological pressures. And also, there's a February flower festival that they say is rooted in history, and it didn't exist 20 years ago. Okay. So, but what's happening is this whole idea of the desire for the tourist to go have this neat cultural experience, and for some countries to want that so badly, some things are starting to get contrived. For all countries, it's not just Thailand. I'm not picking on Thailand. Again, the idea of leakage is money going out of the community. So I want to briefly talk about the sociological cycles of tourism. So this is a really important idea to learn about because without gaining knowledge and education about this, it seems intuitive that if a well-intentioning investor came to your community and said, you know what, I know that you want more money for the schools. I know you want more money for your families. I know you want to have a better lifestyle. Let's develop tourism here. Okay? Everyone's like, woo, yay, it's going to be so great. And so what happens is that altogether too often, what happens is first phase is the money starts coming in, the construction starts happening, the tourists start coming, the money starts flowing, and there's this stage of euphoria. Okay, there's excitement, there's hope, there's imagination. Life can be different. But then as some time goes on, there is a second stage. This usually happens after several years after having tourism develop in your area. Then what happens is the people start to develop feelings of apathy. The locals begin to notice changes. They begin to notice restrictions in their lifestyle. They start noticing that I can't go to my grocery store that I normally go to because that's next door to the big hotel and that's where the tourists go. And I don't want to go there. Okay, I don't feel like it's mine anymore. And there's little ways in their daily life where they're starting to feel the restrictions. Like, I can't afford taxis anymore because the taxi prices went up because the taxis are used by the tourists and tourists can afford more, so now I have to take the bus. After a couple years of that, and you're starting to really get frustrated, then you start to get mad, okay? And because where are you going to escape? It's your life. It's your town. Where are you going to go? So of course, after a while of being upset, you just get angry. Either that or depressed. But we'll get to that. So antagonism begins. And there can be competition. There are all sorts of layers that happen where the host peoples begin to have almost a backlash towards the tourists. So have you ever been to a place where you've seen the antagonism? Where you've seen, raise your hand if you've seen this antagonism. Okay? The anger towards the tourists. I mean, have you ever waited tables? How many people have ever waited tables? Raise your hand. Don't you after a couple years be like, oh gosh, more people just showed up? Oh, they're here, you know? And all of a sudden they become the other, okay? When they are the ones supplying your paycheck, but there becomes this love-hate relationship. They're giving you your well-being at the same time when as soon as they walk in the door, you're like, ooh, okay? This is a very real piece. There was a story by one of my students in my ecotourism class who is from Mexico, and it just happens to be Mexico, could be anywhere. And he talked about how he obviously speaks Spanish, and he was in this little restaurant, and there were tourists over there in the corner, and he was sitting near the kitchen. And he looked in the kitchen, and he saw the workers spit into the food and take it out. Okay, this could be in any country. I should probably just say, I don't remember what country it was. Okay, so that level of antagonism of where you are feeling so upset about your home being taken over and your lives being taken over. Because of course there are all sorts of implications when you're having tourists come in. The fourth stage is descent into self-rejection and despair. This is the part where you give up. Where you're not angry anymore, you just give up and you go into despair. And some people move, but you know what? If you've always lived, if generation after generation after generation, you've always lived in this place, moving is not something you want to do. All right. So sorry to get it a little depressive here, but I'm sure you guys do that during this environmental studies. So sorry. Yeah, okay. All right, so and one last thing I'll say like this. The other thing that happens here is that before the descent of mass tourism, you're a landowner, you're an artisan, you're an elder, you have status, you have knowledge, you have gifts, and you give them. And there's pride in that and beauty in that. And you might not have a lot to eat, and you might not have a lot of pretty things, but you have that. And then the tourism comes along, and all this stuff happens, right? And then you have more money, you might have more things, but what's happening now? You're a bellhop, you're a busboy, you're a laundry personnel, you know? And not that that's not a bad thing at all, but that's a change, okay? And how much do they really make? Because that's about as far as most people go in the ladder. Not that that's a bad thing, but if you want to make more money for your family, right here, if that's a glass ceiling, then you're not going to go into management because you're a host country person and you're not from the United States or a westernized country or whatever, a country that's got enough wealth where you have extra income coming in to create an education for yourself. What happens when you're relegated to that? Not that those are bad again. But that's where a lot of people get stuck because they are depressed. Also, we move from a self-sufficient economy into a dependent society. You're dependent on that income from the tourists. Okay, so let me give you, now I'm going to give you a story from Cancun. Okay, so in Cancun, I was looking at this ecotourism agency, and I came out after a day of it, and I came out to my car, and this is my rental car, very fancy, you can tell, and my wheel was flat, thank you, and so I was like, oh man, this is too bad, because I don't know if I know how to change this. That's really not so good of me. I think I should figure that out. So anyway, this nice man came along. He's like, oh, I'll fix it for you. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. This is so great. So he fixed my tire. He got it all set. And I gave him some money. I'm like, boy, am I ever glad that you came along, because, you know, this is a relief. So I was driving out this huge parking lot, because this is a really big marina. And we're driving out of this huge, huge parking lot. And what do I see? But in each of the large segments of the parking lot is a person standing by their car with a flat tire. You're connecting the dot?
Yeah.
Okay. Exactly. This is the sad thought. Is that poverty and underdevelopment in rural areas causing destruction of traditional means of livelihood. What I was just mentioning. All of a sudden, forget about bellhop. It's like, what happens? What are we participating in? What are we co-creating when we engage in mass tourism? So not only that, but there's rural flight. And that means there's flight from the rural communities to the cluster sites. Because that's where the jobs are. That's where the money is. Okay? Supposedly. And so this right here was created as a very traditional, and this was created by a mega resort to house the people that work there and the laborers. So there's your nice housing. Just think, life's going to be better. We're going to make some money. We're going to give you a house. Okay? And those people that are building those big mega resorts, they're making big bucks. Okay. So greenwashing. Greenwashing is when we basically there's a false advertising. You guys heard of greenwashing?
Oh, yeah.
Greenwashing. Greenwashing is pervasive. I mean, everybody wants to jump on the green thing. Green movement. Woohoo! Everybody's green now. All of a sudden, you know. And the thing is that of course now. Corporate social responsibility, they're like, we need to jump on this. We need to make sure that we have competitive advantage. So what are they doing? They're saying, we want competitive advantage. Let's show everybody that we're green. But the bottom line is, we know that half the time, they're really not green. They're just like, have recycle bins or something. Woohoo! Go recycle bins, you know? You got a long way to go, right? Exactly. So, you know, even the whole idea of hotels. Oh, leave your towel here, and we're going to save the earth by not washing it, you know? Like, good for you. You know darn well you're saving yourself millions of dollars. You know, don't break your arm doing it, you know? That's just like the, very basic sort of things that we can do to help the earth. And so, that's greenwashing. When you're just really trying to jump on the bandwagon, you're doing some nominal things, usually, but you're really not having a full-fledged strategic plan where you're implementing intensive ways to be sustainable. Okay, that's greenwashing. And in the worst cases, you're doing nothing, and you're just completely wrong. Okay. Okay. So now I want to get closer to our little virtual field trip, but I want to. Okay. So I want you guys. This is a test. Okay. Okay, so right here, this is exhibit number 1. Woohoo! Okay, there's exhibit number 1. And then this is exhibit number 2. Okay, so this is exhibit 1. Ish correct. Okay? This is a marina in Cancun. Okay? It is an amazing arena where you can go snorkeling, and not only snorkeling is the biggest activity because it's this huge marina. But there are also exhibits, flora and fauna, performances, culture, services, there's optional activities, but the big activity is there's this big, huge marina that goes out into the ocean, but the bay comes in. There are all these big, giant hotels all around it, so it's super close. You can walk to it. And you can go into this marina and see amazing fish. So that's kind of what it looks like right there in that picture with all the signs all over it. Okay, then we've got Shell Hub. This is also a big, giant marina, just a little ways down the road in the Cancun area, in the Cancun Strip area, not too far from it, actually, it's down a little bit. And it's also a big, huge marina. You can see there, you can go, it's snorkeling, yeah, same idea, see lots of cool exotic fish, all that sort of thing. So those are the two major marinas that all the people who go to Cancun, they're like, wow, which one should we go to, this one or this one? And they see buses go by with like big, huge pictures of both marinas. Come to us, you know? So which one do you go to?
The first one.
Go to the first one? Which one do you go to?
The least expensive.
The least expensive? Can't really tell from the, you know, it's a sheer guess at this point, right?
The more jazzier one.
Yeah, the first one's more appealing as a website.
Yeah, this one's much more appealing as a website for sure.
All
For sure.
live and pictures.
Yeah, all that pictures, all that stuff. Look at that bay right there.
And it's
And
fancy
then-
graphics.
Fancy graphics, look at all that. It is. This is a lame website. Swim with dolphins, whatever. I mean, you can't even tell it's a marina really until that one picture is right there. Well, let me tell you something, the rest of the story. What rarely the tourists hear about is if you do a little bit of research, what you'll find out is that this one here was created by using TNT. Explosive. So what they did is they came and they're like, where should we put a marina? I know, let's put it right near and have all these hotels right here really close, and we'll make this so we'll get lots of fish to come in. So where do you want it to go? Like right over here. Oh, okay, great. Let's just plant a whole bunch of explosives. Everybody stay back. Boom. And they blew up this huge area, dredged this area, and then they made a marina.
Oh my god.
For real.
Wow.
Yeah, but who knows that? No one knows that. The typical, it's not like they're going to put that on their snazzy website, right? Uh-huh. Right. Yes.
Right.
But the thing is that this one that you still don't see on the Giraffe website is completely naturally occurring. This is a marina that was already there with all its little fish and all its little ecosystems, and it was already there. But how did I find out that that was the case? Did I find out through fancy research? Did I find that out in a scholarly journal? Not anything against scholarly journals. But did I find that out? No. You know where I found that out?
Local.
Yes, of course, in the grocery store. Yes. I went to the local's grocery store, and I was walking around talking to people, and I found out the truth about which one is the one to go to. The one to go to is not the fancy website one. Okay, why do they have a fancy website? Because they clearly have a nice revenue stream. Who are they talking to? You guys! Okay, so yeah. So that's it's pretty brutal. And that's a little bit of research will help you to find out how you spend your money. What do you want to contribute to? Because of course all the local host people are like, oh my gosh, those dumb people that go to that one. You know? How can they do that? You know, but how would we know unless we traveled differently? Okay, so I need to move right along because we're starting to run, I'm getting longer. But this, you might want to know this information for your future. I thought that this was a really nice piece of information to give you, that the United Nations is looking at 3 main impacts in regard to tourism. What are they really focusing on right now? They're looking at the depletion of natural resources, they're looking at pollution, and they're looking at the physical impacts. Those are the 3 major areas of initiative that they're working on in regard to tourism. So, what do I want to go from here? Let's see. I want to get on to our virtual field trip very quickly. 1980, Manila Declaration of World Tourism. Tourism does more harm than good to people and societies in the third world. No kidding. That was in 1980. Okay, so ecotourism, what the heck is it? I'm finally talking about it. 1960s is really when the word started coming out. It really didn't take hold until the 90s when it just totally boomed. It was a lot of greenwashing going on, a lot of confusion. There still is. What is ecotourism anyways? It's a very greenwashed word. It's a very buzzword. Now, ecotourism is definitely growing. It's been growing since the 90s. It's been a fast-growing segment of the tourism as a whole. It is been projected just recently in 2009 that sustainable tourism could grow to as much as 25% of the whole tourism market. Okay, and that's good news for all of us. That means you guys are doing something right. Okay, so this idea of ecotourism is definitely theoretically sound, but it's very difficult to implement. Okay, so what's the solution? Merida. This is a picture I took in Mexico. You can see they're really trying to market ecotourism. This is a billboard in the Cancun area, and they're really trying to get you to go to Merida. That's where nobody goes because everyone's going to Cancun. All right. This change is inevitable. You can see there's so much change that's happening. There's policy being developed. There are movements happening on an international level in regard to tourism. Even in Costa Rica, Costa Rica is one of the top leading ecotourism destinations, is one of the leaders in the world, Costa Rica, in regard to ecotourism. And of course, you probably know the president of Costa Rica in 2007 declared peace with nature. Oh my gosh, this is a revolution. No one's ever done that before. Declared peace with nature. That is so deep. Okay, so this is the ecotourism definition. Okay. It definitely involves culture, it involves sustainability, it involves empowerment of the local people and giving to them. It, of course, the draw of nature, community, and even indigenous culture. Okay? The draw of ecotourism is very much about a lot of those elements. Learning is not in that definition, but learning is an important piece. Yeah?
Do they reject the transnational corporations that want to build like Hilton?
Yes, typically. Hilton's like doing a lot of change. Good job. But you know, really ecotourism, we're talking about small scale. So we're gonna talk about that right now. For instance, ecotourism's practices are of course responsible, but we're looking at low impact. We're looking at low visual, the visual impact. So we don't want the big visual, social impact. We're looking at facilities, how they're purchased, the services, buying local, organic, and those kinds of things. Definitely small scale, what we just mentioned. Ethical, looking at a triple bottom line or a CSR. It's obviously nature and culture based. It involves learning as well as giving. All ecotourism businesses, if they're ecotourism, give. They give to their local community, they give to NGOs, they're giving to environmental movements, they're giving some way. So they're passing it on, they're paying it forward. Also, a very important part is that remember the bellhops and the laundry personnel? No way. In ecotourism, the ethic is everyone learns. Everyone learns. The consumer learns, and we learn. So that if I want to be a manager one day, I might be an interpreter guiding bird hikes and bird trips and looking at birds. But later, I'm going to learn how to be a manager. I'm going to learn how to build a website. And so that there is a movement upward available for the local people. Okay, I mentioned some of the challenges. These are some other challenges. Ecotourism is an ideal. It's something that you're always striving towards as a business and a consumer. There are just different difficulties along with it. The Galapagos is really cited as a place where ecotourism began, but of course now there's all sorts of problems going on with the implementation of tourism there that they're trying to manage. Nearly every developing country is promoting some brand of ecotourism. Because the most important two things that they have to sell, share with other people, is the beautiful land and the beautiful people and culture. And what is ecotourism? It's all about the land, it's all about culture. So ecotourism is the thing that so many of these communities are looking to. Let me explain a little bit about what it looks like here on a continuum. This is mass tourism. It's really about escape, pleasure, your occupation. Alternative tourism, which is the direction we're in. There's more of a soft ecotourism as well as hard ecotourism. Nature ecotourism tends to be a little bit more passive, but it minimizes damage. You're a little bit more observatory. But when you get to hard ecotourism, it's a lot more adventurous, active, high touch, and you contribute to bioflourishing. So when you're a hard ecotourist, that means you're really into it. You are giving to people as well as you're really touching, tasting. You're hiking the Inca Trail. You're not driving the bus to go see Machu Picchu. Okay. So here we go. These are major areas here of ecotourism. The idea here is we're looking for prosperity. That's the whole purpose, yeah? You have a question?
Yeah, I mean, with the whole idea of ecotourism, like obviously doing more for the local community and then obviously looking out for the ecosystem. But with that, if that is to catch on big time, right, and let's say it takes place, it's still going to be bad.
Very smart. Very smart. And that's why at the beginning of this I said ecotourism with a question mark. Because it is yet to be seen. And while it's really exciting to see that maybe 25% of the whole of tourism could become sustainable, it's probably not realistic to have mass tourism convert to ecotourism because by very nature, ecotourism goes into pristine areas and sensitive culture or environments. And so there's only so much volume that we're talking about here. It has to maintain smaller volumes, okay? So you're absolutely right on. You're way ahead of me. You can come take my class. Okay? You're so on it. Okay. So, of course, you guys know that there's a demand for sustainability now. Woohoo, people care. Okay. Topography. Okay. This is the topography of the ecotourist. Okay, just real quickly. They're educated. At least one college degree, if not more. They tend to have a slightly higher than average income. They're middle to older age, meaning, not, yes, that's good enough. Gender balance, okay, yeah, I know the age thing. Okay, so gender balanced. It is about 50-50. It wasn't always that way. It does vary a little bit depending on what kind of ecotourism we're talking about. If it's adventure or whatnot, it might have a little bit more men than women. Okay, they tend to be opinionators, leaders, and they seek unromanticized experiences. We do not want unromanticized experiences, these contrived experiences. We want to have engaged experiences with real human beings, look each other in the eyes and sharing with one another while acknowledging power difference. Okay, growth is it good? Just like what you're talking about, like young man in the back. This is exactly what I'm talking about here. In Galapagos increased about 78%. Look at that. That's crazy. 78% increase in their gross domestic product. Oh my gosh. Galapagos gross national domestic product increased by 78% during that small period of time. Oh my gosh. What do we do about the impacts? Okay, then this is how many people came to Antarctica. Look at how many people are going to Antarctica now. Is that crazy? Oh my gosh. What are we going to do about that? Hillary Rodham Clinton was just talking about this because they're trying to address this, like these different layers. Just like a couple weeks ago, they were having a meeting about this. Talk about pristine environment. We are the lovely big hotels. There's the Strip. Cancun was the original population of Cancun was 274 people.
Wow.
274 people. It was a sleepy little fishing village. So this was 100% contrived. It was 100% creative experience. Now there's over 22,000 hotels. That's an old statistic. Oh, no, I mean, sorry. 22,000 hotel rooms. Can you imagine how many flushes that is? Like, that's a lot of flushing. Each room has a toilet and they flush. 22,000 flushes. That's a lot. Where is that other water coming from? Where is it coming from? And how do the farmers even use the fields? Because the water isn't there anymore. It's going to the toilets. Okay, that's for an aerial. And you guys all know about how buildings consume the most. How we create buildings is probably the most important thing. We're going to change something. It's how we create buildings. Sustainable buildings, where it's at. Because buildings consume 2/5 of the world's energy. And that doesn't include the energy that's required to harvest, manufacture, and transport all the materials used to construct and maintain the buildings. Okay, so we won't get into all that right now, but I just want you to get into Cancun here. So this is what Cancun looks like. Here we go. Here's this little tiny strip of land. Woo. And there's the lagoon, which used to have mangroves, and it used to be a nursery, and manatee, and fish, and all that stuff. Well, you can only imagine that the lagoon isn't nearly like it was. You know, the mangroves and rainforests were destroyed in the development of Cancun. Lagoon now, I've seen it myself, is contaminated and foul smelling. It's pretty nasty. It's got heavy metals and chemicals in it, storm runoffs from the marinas. Okay. 20 million foreign visitors annually. We've got so many hotel rooms. Rapid addition of approximately 300,000 residents in a once sparsely populated area. So remember those concrete houses for all the hundreds of thousands of people that showed up to work. I took this picture. It's really pretty, you know. It's so beautiful. I took that picture. There we go. I didn't take that picture. You know what was really amazing? I went to the Ecotourism Conference, and it was in one of those hotels. I was like, horrors! What are they like? Is this a joke? You know? But yeah, exactly. But so you know, but what they don't say is that even to this day, look at the poverty rate in Mexico. Oh my God. 43%, almost half. Actually, that number is a recent number, but they're saying that it's totally going up. It's going up. Look at that. It's incredible. So 1/6 of all water pumped into natural flows are consumed by buildings. 1/4 of all virgin wood is harvested and ends up in buildings. Those are general statistics, which I should not waste time on here because that's all really great. But I need to talk about ecotourism. Growth of tourism arrivals translates into construction of accommodations. So what do we want? We want to create that, or maybe in light of everything, maybe we should create that. Now, doesn't that look yummy?
Yeah.
That looks pretty yummy. You know, I mean, that does have a certain glamour appeal to us archetypally, I think, at this point in the West. But you know, look at that. We can create beauty, even luxury, and have it eco-friendly. Okay. All right, or that. That's an eco lodge. Okay, that. Okay, what do I have there? 30%. Sorry, you can't see that very well. So there's another view from an eco lodge. Okay, we can't see my little writing in red very well, but I want to just move. Yeah, this is the irony, is that most people are actually going to experience nature to a certain degree. Yeah? Okay. See, whoops. I guess that didn't work, huh? All right. So there's my sign again. This is Shellha. So this is the one, this is the winner. This is the winner marina. These are the people that didn't blow this up. This is naturally occurring, okay? This is what they didn't put on their website. This is their old website. Isn't that much better?
Yeah.
This is their old website. I don't know what happened. Change management. So this is the Shellha area, okay? These are some of the different, they have turtle camp, they have birds, they're teaching about fish, they have a bee keeper, a Mayan priest that works with the bees and teaches people about the bees and the significance of the bees. They have a program with the children to teach them about the turtles and taking care of the turtles. Shellha's really got to get it going on their new website. Okay, this is actually a picture I took in Shellha. Look what they did. This is such a powerful example of what you can do, where you can protect nature. This is cement. Okay, cement allows water to go through, and they went around the trees. They didn't clear cut this. And so you can walk along and children can touch the trees, but not go off the trail. You can smell the trees, but not go off the trail. And so it allows for this engagement with nature and interaction and intimacy with nature without hurting it so much. And of course, did they probably have to cut a couple trees down? Yeah. But what a different approach to tourism. Okay? You can see that they built all their huts in traditional ways, using local resources. They have a little silly ecological well, you know, who knows, that might be greenwashing. Okay? So, here's Cancun right here. You drive this direction, and then up here, you just leave your car here, and you take a boat, and you go over here. So this is Mexico's idea. I guess we kind of made a mistake with Cancun. So maybe we'll try over in Isla Holbox. Isla Holbox is this beautiful little fishing village, and what they're doing is they're creating that only ecotourism. Only ecotourism. So I went to go visit Isla Holbox. This is what I saw. Oh my gosh. This is all the people. These are all the people. There were so many people. There was a big traffic jam right here. Okay? When you get to the island, when you're done getting on this little boat, led you by a fisherman, you're in a golf cart. No gasoline. Everyone drives golf carts on the whole island. This is the resort. You can see that all the building materials are made in a traditional style, using local materials. The bedrooms are nice and spacious with even a little refrigerator, solar heated, using solar. There's like a fan in there, keep it nice and cool. Okay. Minimize visual impact. So these are all different ecotourism ethics. Here's a bathroom. Look at the sink and look at the tiles. Local people made the tiles. Local people made that sink and artisans. So all of a sudden, guess what? Wait a minute, you're an artisan? Oh, stay an artisan. You just keep doing your great thing that you keep doing, and we're going to pay you more. Instead of, oh, like, how about if you work in our restaurant? Okay? Look at that. That's the toilet. I took a picture for you. Look. And my partner thought I was really weird. I'm like, I have to take this, for my classes. So anyway, and this is cedar there, like some little aromatic wood, and you just throw a little bit in there, but it doesn't smell. And honestly, and there's a little directions right there on the wall, right there, you can see it. 50% reduction in household water usage, up to 75% reduction of household gray water. The use of compost toilets is awesome.
That was a composting toilet.
Yeah, that was a composting toilet. Oh yeah, composting toilet is very common in ecotourism. Yes, sir.
What's the price range on places like this?
That's a really great question. If I have time, I could show you one in Thailand where there's beautiful eco lodges. $32 a night. Okay, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, like this. But there's also eco luxury lodges, and those can be, $400 a night. And it is an eco luxury lodge, and it is so nice. Yeah.
Now, these massive eco lodges or whatever, who owns them?
That's very good. That's exactly the question you want to ask. I would say, I don't have statistics on this, but based on my reading and my experiences, I would say that about 70% of them start by some nice person who cares about the environment, who wants to invest in a community, pays for it. Or a small group of people pays for it. Okay? And then so someone from a country with more affluence comes in and buys the land and builds an eco resort. They hire local people. The idea is, I would say, in about half of the ecotourism, maybe 45%, what they're doing then is creating a structure for the local people to move up in management until they are running it. Now, in the best of circumstances, maybe 25% of ecotourism lodges, the owner creates a system to exit the system. And then the local people take over and own the business. Okay? So that's the idea, is that you actually want to create a situation where the local people 100% take over and buy you out. And that actually that's happening, yes.
Well, I know like from my other class, like I know with Club Med in Thailand, like they were hiring local people when they went into Thailand, and then I think local people actually started creating their own like little huts and stuff off like the actual Club Med resort, and then doing their own thing. Is that common in other places too? Because I know in Thailand they did that. They basically were getting paid like with these like it wasn't currency at all. So then they were like, okay, well we'll start providing
We'll make
services.
our own.
And they were providing services to Club Med customers
They
that
were
are actually
starting to
getting cash.
contract out.
Right, and then they went off and they were like, okay, well we'll have lodges right on the beach. It'll be traditional, made of wood. They'll have curtains around it, but it was local people that was doing it. Is that kind of something that's going on with other like tourists?
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that ecotourism can create more ecotourism, because the local people can understand that I don't need to change my lifestyle and who I am and my identity in order to make money from the tourist dollar. And change is inevitable. Change is going to happen. It's not 100% perfect, but yes, absolutely, absolutely. The key is do they learn what's possible? That those are savvy individuals. Yeah.
As far as there was a quote that you gave earlier that 80% of the money was used in all-inclusive packages for like hotels and airlines and
Yes.
stuff like that. Well, if remote islands like this that are just opening and they're having these eco lodges, that's one thing. But the majority of like places that are there now that have huge hotels and airlines and things like that, is there any solution to doing something along those lines, or how are we going to take that 80% of the money that goes back to U.S. and give it to people in those areas that are there now? Whereas, like I said, this is such a remote area. What
Right.
about the places that are existing now? How do we not give money to us from
Right.
airlines and hotels and packages?
The number one action that you can do is patronize the bazillion eco lodges that exist all over the world at closer locations to the airport. So if all you need to do is spend money on it, the airline, we can't really do anything about. You're giving your money through the airline, that's going to be a done deal. But beyond the airline, the next major expense is where you stay. So if you choose where you stay to be an ecotourism, a true ecotourism, a stellar ecotourism lodge, then that's the massive amount of money then that you are pouring into the local economy. If you're picking a really nice ecotourism business where 95% of the money is going right there locally, then you go from there with how you spend money with restaurants, how you spend money. You just start to become more aware and do your research on where do you want to spend your money. But lodging is the next biggest expenditure. And so it's just finding an eco lodge. And eco lodges are really easy. I'll give you some websites. It's really easy to find eco lodges. There's a bazillion of them. And they're all quite good. There's lots of good ones.
What percentage of like the U.S. is like has eco?
Oh, United States is very slow in going on the ecotourism bandwagon. Very slow. Very slow. Okay, yeah. So we're going to have to wrap this up. I'm getting the key. But like for instance, look at this guy here. Remember the antagonism? Remember the sociological cycles of tourism?
Yeah.
This guy, I'm walking along in Holbox, right? Isla Holbox. I'm walking along because we didn't have a golf cart. And I'm walking along, and this guy's walking along. We start talking to each other. And I was like, I really want to get a conch shell. I want to get a conch shell because this is a fishing village. And I was like, he's a fisherman. I'm like, do you ever get conch shells stuck in your fishing line and like you throw them back or whatever? Do you have any conch shells? He's like, yeah, come here. And so we go into his side yard, and he is cleaning a shell for me. Okay? He is so excited to clean the shell for me. He's so excited to share about fishing with me. He's a fisherman. Okay? It was so cool. He had this nice experience. He was excited to meet me. Okay? How many people, when you go traveling, they're excited? Oh, how nice! I can't wait. You're a tourist. What's your name? That just doesn't happen anymore. Okay? So this happened. So anyway, should I wrap it up in 2 minutes?
Yes.
Pretty-
Yeah, 2 minutes. Maybe you can show them how
how they can find ecotourism sites.
Okay, that sounds good. Very good. All right, so now let's see here. Let's end that show. All right. That's Machu Picchu, right, by the way. Of course, I lead study abroad, so if you ever want to go on a spiritual travel to Peru, that's what I do in the summertime. I'll give you a whole list of places where you can now go, because this is a very reputable site. It's the International Center for Responsible Tourism. But there's also the International, it's called TIES. It's the International Ecotourism Society. But there are just so many different ones that are reputable places for you to find an ecotourism resort. If you want to go for your honeymoon, there are luxurious ones. I slept in one in Cancun area, ecotourism, in Cancun, like just south of the Strip. And my partner and I were in this beautiful round hut. I am not kidding. And this wasn't even total eco-luxury. We were in this round hut. On the bed, you could look out and see a panoramic view of the ocean. And literally while you're on the bed, because it's like, it's like plexiglass, really high, stuff. And then you walk out your hut, and literally like 3 feet later is this cliff, and all I see is ocean. Oh my gosh. And then we walk through the sand about 50 feet to a really, really nice dinner. Like an exquisite dinner in a larger hut with a full bar and music and air floating through and live band and stuff like that. Ecotourism does not need to be a really hardcore experience where you're getting all sweaty and whatnot. Okay, so what I'll do is I will list those off for you. Do you have another burning question? Because I think we'll need to end it.
Thank you.